When scientists and farmers work together, they can achieve a high production partnership. That's why the Minnesota Soybean Research and Promotion Council has nearly 20 research projects underway with scientists at the University of Minnesota. Let's see how some of these research projects can lead to smarter soybean farming.
What's the University of Minnesota doing about sudden death syndrome? We've got some of it in my area of Mower and Fillmore counties.
Sudden death syndrome is a disease of soybeans caused by a soil-borne fungus. It's been in Minnesota for about the last 10 years or so, and it's spread now to 37 counties across Minnesota, although not all at the same level of severity, but it's pretty much restricted to the southern half of Minnesota. It starts by infecting the roots of a soybean plant, probably within 2 to 3 weeks after the seedling germinates in the spring. So the initial infection is very early in the season, and that fungus grows very slowly through the root as the plant grows throughout the season. And when it initially starts to develop, we see it in the middle part of the plant canopy, and with these chlorotic lesions. As the disease progresses, then the yellow tissue dies, as you can start to see happening here, until it kills a lot of the tissue between the veins, like you can see on this leaf here. The other thing to look for on a plant like this is to cut into the lower stem, and you can see a gray-brown discoloration in this area, which won't be present on a healthy plant. And it's subtle, and we have to look at it on a freshly harvested plant. Once a plant is dried out a little bit, it's very, very difficult to see it. But that's a pretty diagnostic symptom for sudden death syndrome. So the yield loss we see with soybeans are both due to the root rot, which kind of holds back productivity of the whole plant or may kill it, and also due to destruction of the leaf tissue, which means they cannot produce any more photosynthesis, and essentially energy production then stops in the plant. Assessing yield loss is a little bit difficult. The disease rarely occurs consistently across an entire field. It usually occurs in patches, so ranging from a half acre to several acres in size. We can have 20, 30 bushels less in those areas. There can be a very significant yield loss, but it also tends to be patchy and not affecting large acreages at one time. Because SDS is favored by cool, wet soil, sometimes the disease develops in lower parts of fields first, where it's more wet. But that's not always the case. For example, when I went into fields back in 2010 and sampled from 11 different fields with hotspots, most of the time the hotspot was not in the lowest part of the field. There was no clear topographical feature distinguishing the hotspot from the non-hotspots. There is no clear evidence that crop rotation really makes a difference, and there's no real clear evidence that tillage makes a difference, and there's no clear evidence that any of the fungicides make a difference. There are some other things that can be done which are not surefire but may help reduce SDS, and that is some delayed planting, changing and altering planting dates, reduce compaction in fields, and enhance drainage. The number one approach to managing and reducing SDS is to plant soybean varieties that have resistance to SDS. I think seed companies have been putting more emphasis on breeding for SDS resistance in the last 5 years or so, since it's become a recognized problem in Minnesota. Although it must be kept in mind that there is no variety anyone can buy anywhere that's completely resistant. But resistance comes in a matter of levels. Some can have low levels, some can have high levels. But any level of resistance provides a measure of protection and can result in higher yields. The main point is we're getting more and more resistance in Minnesota, both I think higher levels of resistance, and more options for varieties that have resistance. So which is a good thing for farmers.
As soybean farmers, when you transform discoveries from science into higher yields in the field, you're providing the world with an abundant supply of safe and affordable food. You're advancing America's energy security through renewable biofuels. And you're protecting the environment by sustaining natural resources and building Minnesota's economy through higher productivity and profitability.